There are primarily two opinionated groups when it comes to Trump's decisions. The MAGA crowd that loves almost everything he does, and the people who think he's literally mustache man. But how is he actually doing at controlling the executive branch? Trump is definitely the most memeable president of all time. But how are his actual policies performing, and are they really a net positive or a net negative for the country? The US border wall was, in theory, a fantastic idea to combat illegal immigration. From what I understand, Trump's administration built almost 500 miles of primary and secondary barriers along the southern border. A lot of this construction, however, was simply replacing older barriers. While these upgrades matter for border security, I wish he could have done more. The border itself is roughly 2,000 miles long. Trump increased primary barrier coverage from about 650 miles to around 700. This is a massive letdown. I bet most of his supporters hoped he would secure far more of the border. To be fair, Trump did crack down heavily on illegal immigration, and if he truly managed to halt 99% of illegal crossings, then he deserves credit for that. Even if he didn't fulfill the symbolic promise of a big, beautiful wall, results matter more than imagery. But in terms of the literal campaign promise, he did build a wall, just not nearly as much as most people imagined. Trump didn't handle the pandemic well. He signed the CARES Act, spending $2.2 trillion in relief for individuals, businesses, and state governments. That is simply a massive amount of money, and I consider it largely a waste in the long run. I will give Trump credit for refusing to implement nationwide lockdowns. Overall, he did okay during the pandemic, a lot better than what most presidents would have done, and certainly better than his successor. But considering the tools at his disposal, it still wasn't ideal. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 lowered several individual tax rates, nearly doubled the standard deduction, and most importantly, dropped the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. This sounds great if the goal is reducing government power, but in practice, it doesn't really do that much in terms of changing things, because taxes are basically a formality at this point. The government does not fund itself primarily through taxation. It funds itself through debt. Even when taxes go down, spending doesn't. The size of government doesn't shrink. Even if we cut taxes to a flat rate of like 10%, I doubt much would change, because the government can always finance itself through issuing debt and expanding the money supply. So while the bill made us look like a more conservative government on paper, it didn't really make us that much more financially responsible. The same logic applies to the One Big Beautiful Bill. Lowering tax rates and increasing deductions doesn't address the underlying issue. It's like putting a band-aid on an infected wound. Reforming SNAP was super necessary, and that is one of Trump's biggest wins from OBA. It shifts incentives in a healthier direction for the workforce and the economy. That said, it's really the only big win. The rest of the bill improves short-term incentives and disposable income, but it totally ignores the long-term fiscal crisis. The real problem remains untouched: fiscal deficits, monetary expansion, and an ever-increasing federal debt. Now for tariffs. A tariff is simply a consumption tax on imported goods, but its impact is far from simple. The intention behind tariffs is clear. It's supposed to help American workers by boosting domestic industries, but the benefits are what are questionable. Here's a scenario. Americans buy cheap widgets from China because they are affordable and high quality. Domestic producers can't compete. People argue that these foreign firms exploit cheap labor or have slave wages, and that buying foreign products eliminates American jobs. Therefore, tariffs are proposed as a solution. But here's what actually happens. If we place a 10% tariff on imported steel, domestic producers gain a protected market. Domestic companies can raise prices to just below the new inflated import price. Productivity falls because protected industries face less competition. Less competition leads to less innovation, which leads to slower growth. And then poor businesses lose access to affordable materials. Tariffs also violate the Austrian principle of the division of labor, which states that the larger the market, the greater the specialization, productivity, and total wealth. Tariffs shrink the market by blocking off international trade, reducing specialization, and then reducing wealth. And here's the most important point: everyone buys goods. Not everyone works in protected industries. And this is why it's so important. Tariffs benefit a relatively small number of domestic workers and firms, but they harm every consumer, every business that relies on imported inputs, every exporter facing retaliation, and all future generations through lower economic growth. Low prices benefit 330 million Americans. Protected jobs benefit tens of thousands. Tariffs just aren't worth it. So Trump's policies overall have negatively affected the economy and therefore its people. This is unfortunate because economics should have been one of his strongest areas. Closing the border, deporting illegal immigrants, drilling more oil, these are all good policies. But he's not doing enough. Results matter more than ideals. It's one thing to propose good ideas, it's another to achieve good results. The national debt rose significantly during Trump's first term. A 10-year cost estimate of his legislation comes to roughly $8.4 trillion with interest. Even if he's not the one solely responsible for all the government money spent during that time, the deficits still kind of show that he was in charge, and what did he do about it? For spending this tremendous, every American should expect to see like a giant improvement in their life. But I don't see the effects of it. I don't think most people see positive effects in their life from this spending. If anything, things have gotten worse. And that makes sense because when the government spends money, it's not spent intelligently. This decline isn't just Trump's fault. It's decades of Democratic presidents and legislation that have also damaged the economy. But the real question is, how well did Trump combat the terrible policies already in place? And the unfortunate answer is not very well. But to close things, I think Trump is an okay president. In my opinion, he's too moderate. He's too soft. He's not attacking the real systems that are doing the most amount of damage to us. He should be attacking the central banks. He should be calling out the media more often for their bullshit. He should be spending less time in other nations in general. However, I will have to say I do like when he makes business deals with other nations who want to invest in the US. That is definitely a good thing. But overall, he should stay out of other countries. So yeah, that's my opinion on Trump for now. Now tell me why I'm wrong.